Okay, so we're here at the Kyuquot Seafoods Multi-trophic aquaculture site, and we have our resident or semi-resident kelp expert out doing some measurements and stuff. Nathan, how about you introduce yourself and tell us what you're doing there?
Nathan Blasco, and I'm a master's student. I've been growing this kelp with Rusty and Dave out here for 3 years now. And this is just a study to find out, or just looking at what we can do about a snail infestation that we get every year. So I'm just putting out these kelps.
What sort of kelp is it, Nathan?
Saccharine latissima, single-bladed kelp species. That's pretty common.
Sugar kelp, common name sort of thing everybody calls?
That's
or
the sugar kelp, yeah. And so I've just got a bunch of blades tied to weighted tubes, putting it down 5 meters, monitoring growth rate, waiting for the snails to appear so I can see what we can do about this, whether if it's descending these down to a depth of some sort would take care of the snails.
Yeah, try and get it down to the right depth before the snails set at the 5 meter depth sort of thing.
Yep, and because that is the biggest problem that we have with growing this stuff out here right now.
Yeah, it's the snails, and I can show you some photos, and I'll probably put some photos on this video near the end of our first unfortunate event with snails. We probably harvested a little too late, and we ended up all these beautiful blades that we had were pretty much gnawed off, in some cases right back to the correct name?
The stipe.
The stipe.
The stipe.
So the second year we managed to harvest a little bit earlier than the snails, although we still did have some snail damage, and so this year Nathan's looking at, okay, how can we get around the snail damage, and also at the same time, because he's got them hanging there, they're easy blades to do the checking of the growth, so the growth rates on them. So Nathan was out here a couple of weeks ago and punctured a couple of holes in, and I guess that's what you're doing, Nathan, is measuring from those holes now?
Yeah, this is just a method of, so you cannot monitor the growth of a kelp of the whole blade because the blade tip erodes from very early on in the kelp's life. So what you do is you punch a hole in the blade and you measure the distance
back
from
to the stipe,
what's called the meristematic junction, right there where the stipe meets the blade.
Yeah.
That distance to the hole. And so as the kelp, the growth comes from this point here, so as the kelp grows down, this hole will move further down away from here. And you get an idea about what is happening.
Growth rates over 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever period you're measuring.
That's right.
So are you seeing growth since last time you were here 2 weeks ago?
Let's see. 2 weeks ago we have about, it looks like on average about it was between 15 and 20 centimeters of growth in 2 weeks.
Really?
However, I did not, I would have given you an erosion rate because you can just measure the end of the blade tip
to the erosion tip
to that hole.
Yeah.
And I didn't take that measurement when I set them out, but
well,
I'm doing that now.
Yeah, and you'll be out in another 2 weeks, and I think, what are we, probably 4 weeks away from harvesting our first set here?
Something like that,
yeah.
Yeah.
You're not seeing any snails yet?
No snails yet, which is surprising to me.
Yeah, although we have had a bit of a different year, eh? You know, it's still cold. We're in May and it's still kind of pretty cold, and I don't know whether that affects them, but I guess that's what you study. Not
the normal amount of sun in May. We normally get a lot of sun in May, which makes these things grow like crazy.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure if that has much to do with it. I really couldn't say for sure.
No, that's the whole idea of studying it. So he's got a bunch of these guys hanging, and then out here in the system, which we'll go out here shortly, and we'll try and pull one up and get a bit of a decent view of the kelp, the biomass that's on one of these lines. But out here, if you look out there, every one of those black bobbers has a 40-meter line extending back to the system, or actually back to the scallop system here, and on the far side over there is the black cod cages. So being that the current moves through the system from the black cod cages through the current brings the nutrients through the scallop system here, and then the final nitrates, etc., solubles, get picked up, we hope, by the kelp in significant amounts. And that's what Nathan's studying, both this little project for snails and growth rates, but also for the overall nitrate pickup, etc. in the kelp. And eventually, I guess, Nathan, you'll be able to work out exactly how much nitrates each kelp blade with the given biomass and growth and everything has picked up.
That's a hard one, but yeah, hopefully hopefully eventually we'll be able to figure out about the amount of so it's the inorganic nitrogen, so it's the ammonia coming from the fish waste that these are able to pick up from the water column. So we'll see.
So
a lot of work there, but
yeah,
that's a hard one to be able to deduce. However, we can make we could make pretty good guesses.
So can we tell that the nitrates or ammonias that are in the kelp is actually coming from the fish? Is that what Christine has been doing, is studying those?
You can determine if they have the nitrogen
from the fish
in the blade. How much, based on what she did, which is the isotope analysis, you can't. It only tells you if it's there or not. But
at least we know that they're picking up nitrates that have come from that biomass of fish.
Yeah.
Regardless of how much it's picking up, in the long run, that's our overall plan, is to mitigate some of those nitrates coming off, or ammonias coming off the fish, being picked up. And to some degree, as long as we can tell, to me anyway, as long as we can tell that the kelp that we're doing around the farm is doing that job, then at least in some small part, the kelp is helping mitigate that effluent, or use that nutrient stream, depending on how you want to look at it.
If it's coming by here, these should be able to.
These guys should be picking it up. And that ultimately is reducing some of the effect from the fish to the environment. And overall, hopefully Nathan's working on a big market for all of this kelp too, although, you know, that's been a slow thing and not really part of his project.
Right.
Okay, well, thanks, Nathan.
So this is the Saccharina latissima, formerly known as Laminaria saccharina.
Yeah, that one really stranged me out. They keep changing the names on me. I can't keep up with it.
Yeah. Then and that's all along this grid, the lines running towards the black boys.
The vast majority of what we've got here, eh?
We also have some just trial lines of Macrocystis integrifolia, which are one sitting over there and one over here.
And how are they going? Have you?
To be honest,
not as good as these guys, maybe, but
they're growing.
Yeah.
I have thoughts on why they're not growing, maybe as productively as, say, what we'd see out on the outside. But, anyways.
Yeah. Part of your thesis.
Yeah, another paper. Another amount of literature reviewing. Then on the far end, there is a line that's got Chondrocanthes exasperatus. And yeah, no doubt, it's a big name. and halfway, and then the other, or about 1/3 the way down the line, and then the remainder 2/3 is Gracilaria. Which species, I really couldn't say.
Okay. Well, I've got some photos of that when you were putting that Gracilaria into that line, so I'll try and include some of those on this as well. Yeah, I was just trying to. I'd forgotten to ask you how many different species of kelps and stuff that we've actually tried here, and we had Groenlandica at one stage, and so we've
had Laria marginata. Didn't do too well with that. We've had Costeria costata, and that went pretty well. Am I missing any? No.
I'm not sure, man. You're the expert as far as I'm concerned on kelp.
That's the 5 species of kelp that we've tried.
Right on. So and really, I think for biomass purposes and that this has been the most successful to date. Really, is the latissima, formerly known as
Laminaria saccharina.
Well, thanks, Nathan. Good update, man. And yeah, really interesting project, and seems to be picking up the ammonias as Steve predicted, Dr. Steve Cross. And yeah, this is the this is the kelp part of the integrated multi-trophic aquaculture site here in Kyuquot Sound. Kyuquot Seafoods. Beautiful evening.